Welcome to the digital learning BA optional second semester session 35. It's an introduction to Wuthering Heights novel created by JAYASHREE MG. In this session, as you find already mentioning of about the novel, it is written by Emily Bronte. The type of work is novel. It belongs to the genre of Gothic literature, Victorian, romance. It is published in the year 1847. Sets in the northern England moors. Here we find it belongs to the genre of Gothic literature. What does it mean? Gothic means what? Gothic refers to a style of writing characterized by elements of fear, horror, death and gloom, as well as romantic elements such as nature, individuality and very high emotion. In short, to understand, it is a style of writing that describes strange or frightening event that takes place in a mysterious place. We find Wuthering Heights, a very mysterious place, because in the beginning of the novel we find Heathcliff, the owner of the Wuthering Heights, and the building, the archetypal building we find there reflects his nature also, his thinking also. The main characters in this novel we find Heathcliff, Catherine Earnshaw, Edgar Linton, Kathy Linton, Hareton Earnshaw, Ellen Nellie Dean. The whole story revolves around these characters. We find Ellen Nellie Dean is the narrator of the story. Heathcliff and Catherine, they fall in love with each other, but Catherine marries Edgar, and we find Hareton Earnshaw, Kathy Linton, the next generation children they are. So the whole, as I told you, the whole story, the plot revolves around these characters. It's a multi-generational novel which deals with love, hate, revenge. All these elements are traced in this novel. Yes. Now, the major themes we find in this novel is romantic love, brotherly love, love versus hate, revenge, crime and punishment, nature and culture. All these themes we find, these are the main themes: love versus hate, revenge. We could see in all the characters existing and the relationship between these characters. How are they? All these emotions are exhibited. We could find in the novel. Next comes motifs. Motifs means themes or idea or subject. Here we find obsession. Heathcliff is obsessed with Catherine, and that turns to revenge when she marries to Edgar, and he becomes a rebellious nature, a rebellion. All these three things we find in this novel. Here we find the major symbols. Houses we find. Here Linton's house at Thrushcross Grange, and Wuthering Heights, Earnshaw's family. So we find in the beginning of the novel, we find Wuthering Heights owned by Heathcliff, and what type of a character Heathcliff is. All these things are reflected. And keys shows the master or the mastery of conquering the properties. And archetypal characters, the architecture, Victorian era, we find the building reflecting the architecture during those days. And here we find the building of Wuthering Heights, let it be a Thrushcross Grange. It exhibits certain emotions of the characters exist in the houses. Yes. Now you are introduced into the novel. It's a brief note about the novel you are going to be introduced in this session. As I told you, Wuthering Heights is concerned with two families. They are Earnshaws and Lintons. It carries over generations. That's how we say it's a multi-generational novel. And the novel is set in moors of northern England, Yorkshire we say. It covers a period of 1771 to 1803. Before Earnshaw adopt a son, Earnshaw family and Linton's family were living in harmony with. They were not disrupted by anything. They were living peacefully. But when they adopt a son, adopt an orphan, Heathcliff, their lives are disrupted, and the orphan becomes a catalyst of change. The adopted son has become an emblem of social problems of a nation entering the age of industrial expansion. We find during Victorian period, industrial revolution took place and urban growth also. So the age is reflected here in the novel through this character we do find here. Although Bronte sets the action of the novel entirely within the locale familiar to her, she is not going out of the local setup or rural setup. She is not going to speak about industrial expansion or revolution or the urban side or part of the life. She is going to go with the where on the moors, what life is, how the life has existed. So that part only she has focused here in this novel. So she reminds the reader continually the contrast between that world, that is the world of moors, that is a small world, and the larger world outside. This is what she says, urban growth, industrial expansion. Here you could find a genealogical table of the principal characters, right? So we find there are two families existed in two places, one at Wuthering Heights, one at Thrushcross Grange. And in the chart we find at Wuthering Heights, under Wuthering Heights, who are all the people stayed there? You find Mr. Earnshaw and Mrs. Earnshaw, right? They have a children, Hindley and Catherine. Later on, we find Francis mentioned there. Hindley gets married to Francis and they have a child by name Hareton. And to the right side, we find at Thrushcross Grange, Linton family existed. Mr. Linton and Mrs. Linton, they have two children, Edgar Linton and Isabella Linton. Edgar marries Catherine Earnshaw and Isabel marries Heathcliff. Isabella and Heathcliff have a child, Linton Heathcliff. This Heathcliff is the outsider. We find towards the right end of it, we find from outside. So Heathcliff is the adopted son by Earnshaw, getting married to Isabel because of profit, Isabel belongs to Linton's family, so it's a profitable one. So he gets married to Isabel and they have a child, Linton Heathcliff. Catherine and Edgar, okay, had a child, a baby, okay, Kathy Linton. We find already mentioning of this character, Kathy Linton. So this is about the genealogical table. Hope so. The characters are very clear and families are very clear, and who is the outsider, why he has become an emblem of social emblem. He has become a social emblem, okay, and he is the development, a symbol of development we do find, and how he plays with the emotions of all these characters, Earnshaw family and Linton family, okay. All these things we'll learn. It's like it'll help us to understand who are all the characters existing in this novel. And we also find the generations, okay, 3 generations we do find: Earnshaw, Hindley Catherine and Hareton. So 3 generations are layered, you do find in the genealogical table. Yes, we find the plot, setting, characters, structure, all these combined, okay, are seen as the part of dialectic nature of existence. As we find Bronte focused on only the life in moors. So in a world where opposing forces are continually arrayed against each other in the environment, in society, in families, in relationships, as well as within the individual, there can be no easy route to perception of another human soul. Wuthering Heights demonstrates the complexity of this dialectical and portrays the limitations of human perception. As we find, okay, the moors, the life in the moors itself holds the limitations. That's how she has brought in the broader perspective of Heathcliff as a social emblem, where reflecting the industrial revolution and urban growth, we don't find all such things in this okay, Moors family. That's how we find here, okay, continually arrayed against environment, society, families, okay, relationships. We find opposing forces. And also it portrays the limitations of human perceptions also. Beyond that, they cannot think. So all these we find, okay, existing in this session. You are introduced to through the genealogical table, the 3 generations and the characters, okay, and what has happened to these characters, what conflicts we find there, what is the plot summary, what is the theme. So all these in detail you are going to understand in the following sessions. So thank you, students, for listening patiently. Take care.